butter prices are soaring. Rents in Auckland are sky high. Inflation lurks in every receipt. Nurses are striking. And wages? Flatlining. It's not a future dystopia. It's New Zealand in 2025. Families tightening belts. Students doubling up in tiny flats. Bakers weighing the cost of just one loaf. Stay tuned, because later in this video, you'll hear just how much a 500-gram block of butter now costs, and why some Kiwis are churning their own at home. Wait for it. We'll reveal how much rent Aucklanders are paying and the human stories behind the numbers. And later, the shocking truth about what happens when 36,000 nurses walk off the job in protest. The cost of living in New Zealand is hitting families harder than ever. From rent to groceries, from electricity bills to wages, every part of daily life feels more expensive. Today, we'll break it down, step by step. We'll look at housing, food, utilities, wages, and the everyday struggles people face. And by the end, you'll see the bigger picture, why so many New Zealanders are saying this is the toughest financial year in decades. Now let's talk about rent. Rents in New Zealand have hit record highs. In Auckland, the average weekly rent is now $633. That's according to the Daily Blog in March 2025. Across the country, the national average is $575 a week. For many families, that means half of their income is gone before they even think about food, power, or transport. Wages are not keeping up. For young workers, saving for a first home feels impossible. And for students, flatting often means living in overcrowded houses or turning living rooms into bedrooms just to keep costs down. Foreign buyers are also back in the headlines. In September 2025, AP News reported that overseas investors are now allowed to buy homes worth over $5 million. It may sound like a market for the super rich, but it drives up prices at the top end, and eventually that pressure flows down to everyone else. For tenants, the struggle is not just about price. Many are paying hundreds each week to live in damp or moldy rentals. If they complain, they risk a rent hike or even eviction. Household living costs rose 3% in the year to December 2024, according to Stats NZ. But rents have risen much faster in many areas. Behind every statistic is a real story. Parents working late shifts just to cover rent. Young couples abandoning the dream of home ownership. Students crowding into tiny flats. This is the housing crisis in New Zealand. And in 2025, it shows no sign of slowing down. But if you think rent is shocking, wait until you hear about the supermarket. Because even the price of butter has become a national scandal. In 2025, a trip to the supermarket feels like a luxury for many New Zealanders. Prices of everyday staples have jumped dramatically, and families are feeling the pressure every week at the checkout. Take butter, for example. According to The Guardian, in June 2025, the price of a 500-gram block of butter has risen by 65% in just 1 year. It now costs $7.42. Butter, once a basic item in every fridge, has become a symbol of the cost of living crisis. Some households are even turning to old-fashioned methods, churning their own at home to avoid supermarket prices. And butter isn't the only problem. Bread, milk, and fresh vegetables have all climbed in price. Small bakeries say they are struggling to survive. When the cost of flour and butter rises, they can't keep up. Either they pass the cost on to customers, or they risk closing their doors. Meanwhile, New Zealand's dairy exports are booming overseas. Farmers are selling products at high global prices, but that success is not being felt in local supermarkets. The result? Kiwis are paying more for the same products that New Zealand produces in abundance. For families, the adjustments are painful. Some are cutting down on meat, introducing vegetarian days just to stretch the budget. Students are living on instant noodles. Parents are skipping meals so their children don't go hungry. It's a harsh contrast. A nation proud of its farming and food production yet many of its people struggling to afford the basics. And the big question is, if butter and bread are already this expensive, what happens next? From the supermarket aisle, let's switch to the bills piling up at home. Electricity, insurance, council rates. These are the essentials every household must pay. And in 2025, they're climbing faster than inflation. Electricity bills are biting harder. Insurance premiums are going up. And local council rates are rising at a pace many families simply can't manage. According to Reuters in July 2025, council rates in some areas are increasing faster than overall inflation, adding hundreds of dollars a year to household costs. At the same time, consumer confidence is sliding. The index has fallen to 94.7, with inflation expectations at 5.1%. In simple terms, people don't feel secure about their financial future. Add to that the cost of storm damage. Severe weather in the Upper North Island this September brought huge cleanup bills for councils and insurance companies. Those costs don't disappear. They trickle down to ratepayers and policyholders. Ordinary families end up carrying the burden. For many households, it feels like a trap. Rent takes half the paycheck. Food eats another quarter. And then the bills arrive: power, insurance, rates leaving almost nothing left over. The phrase cost of living sounds abstract, but when the power bill comes in higher than expected, or when rates jump another 10%, it becomes personal. Families cut back, delay payments, or go without. And yet, this is only part of the picture. Because even as costs rise, wages are failing to keep pace. And workers are beginning to push back. Stay tuned, because next, we'll talk about wages, jobs, and strikes. And we'll reveal what happened when 36,000 nurses walked off the job in protest. We've talked about rising rents. We've covered food inflation. We've seen how power bills and insurance are draining wallets. But the other side of the story is income. Wages, paychecks, the money people rely on to fight back against these costs. And here's the hard truth. Wages in New Zealand are not keeping up. In April 2025, the minimum wage rose by just 1.5%. That sounds like progress, but when inflation is running at over 5%, it's really a pay cut in disguise. Half of all workers received a pay rise of less than 2% this year. For many, that meant their income actually lost value against the cost of living. This is the frustration echoing across workplaces. People are working just as hard, in some cases harder, picking up extra shifts, but their money buys less. Rent goes up, food goes up, bills go up, but the paycheck feels frozen in time. And when people feel trapped, they take action. In August 2025, New Zealand witnessed one of the biggest strikes in recent history. 36,000 nurses walked off the job. 36,000 professionals who carry the nation's health system on their backs. Their message was clear: we cannot live on these wages anymore. The strike wasn't just about money. It was about respect. Nurses have been at the front lines through crises, pandemics, natural disasters, hospital shortages. Yet their pay has lagged behind. Many report working double shifts, only to come home to overdue rent or bills they can't cover. The strike sent shockwaves through the country. Hospitals reduced services. Patients were delayed. The government scrambled to negotiate. But more importantly, the strike became a symbol of what happens when workers can't keep up with the cost of living. And it wasn't just nurses. Teachers, retail workers, and public sector staff have all raised their voices. Some staged smaller strikes. Others are threatening future action. The message is spreading. If wages don't rise, the workforce will not stay silent. This growing wave of industrial action shows the depth of frustration across New Zealand. It's not limited to one sector. It's not a single profession's battle. It's a nationwide reality. When people talk about the cost of living, they often think of rent and groceries. But for many New Zealanders, transport is the hidden burden. In most towns and cities, a car isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. Public transport is improving in places like Auckland and Wellington, but for many workers, students, and families, driving remains the only realistic option. And the costs are heavy. Fuel has stayed stubbornly high, often hovering around $3 a liter. Insurance premiums are rising. Repairs and WOF checks can empty a bank account. Even secondhand cars are expensive. A used vehicle that once cost $6,000 now sells for $10,000 or more. For families, this means tough choices. Some delay servicing or drive on worn tires. Others cut back on trips, combining errands to save fuel. Students and younger workers often give up cars altogether, relying on crowded buses or bikes, even if it means longer commutes. Yet there are small positives. More Kiwis are looking at hybrids, EVs, and car-sharing schemes. Public transport investment is slowly improving connections in urban areas. And despite the struggle, people are adapting, finding creative ways to keep moving without breaking the bank. Mobility costs remain a heavy load, but the resilience of New Zealanders shows through. Even under pressure, people are finding ways to keep life going one journey at a time. We've journeyed through rents, groceries, power bills, wages, and cars. Together, these paint a tough picture of New Zealand in 2025. But what does it all mean for the bigger story? On one side, there's signs of progress. Global tech giants like Amazon are investing billions in cloud infrastructure here. New jobs in tech and data are being created. Festivals and cultural events, like the announced Split Ends reunion at Electric Avenue 2026, give people something to look forward to. These sparks of optimism matter. They remind us that New Zealand is not only defined by hardship, but on the other side, inequality is growing. The housing market tilts toward investors. Food and energy costs climb faster than paychecks. Strikes and protests reflect deep frustration. The middle class, once the country's backbone, feels like it's slipping away. And that's the challenge of this moment. The cost of living crisis is not just about money. It's about the kind of society New Zealand wants to be. A place where ordinary families can afford a home, a car, good food, and a safe life. Or a place where only the wealthy thrive, while others fall behind. The future is unwritten. Some economists predict easing inflation and gradual stability. Others warn of tougher times ahead. But one thing is certain. The resilience of New Zealanders will continue to define the story. Because behind every rising price, there's a family finding a way through. Behind every strike, there's a worker demanding respect. And behind every hardship, there's a determination not to give up. The cost of living isn't just a crisis. It's the story of how ordinary Kiwis are fighting to survive in extraordinary times. And that story is still being written. What's the one price that shocked you the most? Was it rent, food, petrol, or something else entirely? Comment below and share your experience.